Hi there. Can you hear me? Hi, Erin. Can you hear me?
In a half-mile, make a right turn on North Broadway.
Oh, you can go straight. That might be better, actually. Yeah.
Quarter mile, make a right turn on North Broadway.
Seriously cold. I need water. I just like chug the latte all day. I'm like, why is my heart rate crazy?
Hey Marina, are you there right now?
I am. Can you hear me?
You just came off to me, but I can't hear you. Let me see if I can.
Give me 2 minutes.
Can you hear me now?
Just hit drop.
Sorry about that. It was so frustrating. I get away from like the alley.
You're completely blocked.
Yeah.
This one.
I would do it.
So it's like, I'm
No, I gotta go
like far away from the street, like, at the mall. Yeah.
How was your guys' drive in?
Actually, the traffic was not as bad as it usually is, I guess maybe because it was the summer.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, actually parking wasn't bad either.
I went to undergrad here and got a million parking tickets. No, it was more that I was not like, oh, no, I'll just send it in now. And that was not the right way to handle it. We're just waiting for another moment. Marina's going to land via Zoom, so I'm feeling well today. Which was listed on.
Hi, Erin. Can you hear me?
Marina, I just saw that you joined again. Can you hear us all right?
Can you hear me? Erin,
can you hear me?
And I cannot hear you at this moment. That's another stuff, if you can hear us all right.
I can hear you guys.
That's great. So definitely type us messages if you have some questions. I see that you can hear us. So we'll go ahead and get started with the presentation. I'm not too sure why my speakers aren't working. But we'll go ahead. All right.
Oh my god, I can't hear them.
I'm just going to what our findings with how we what risks with all of this with we also reveal our trade show results and our suggestions. Finally, we will discuss our next steps and we encourage questions. Back to you along the way. Here's our problem statement. We will need to government regulations. We will be giving you our market entry last year. And we will give you a rank list of manufacturing, now, so we will present analysis. We also think that there are a lot of impact investors that are that so Europe has a lot of biotech. They have biotech for years dying. There's a lot of net zero opportunities that we have to there are a lot of different players in the market. Also, that the high bargaining power providers. Liatris does have two really key components that we think will play well in the market, being environmentally friendly, the low carbon emissions for production, as well as the high insulation power that will increase energy efficiency, as well as the non-combustible component. As we mentioned, that it was important in Europe, and while there isn't currently mandated regulations on non-combustible or residential units, there are some trade industries that we think really would be advantageous for the to get in front of with this component. The Modern Building Alliance and the European Fire Safety Week are two different trade shows that we have to get in front of, find consumers that are particularly interested in non-combustible components. In terms of industry attractiveness, we did a high-level quarter by forces review. As I mentioned before, bargaining power is high. Bargaining power of consumers is also diversified into numerous different consumers. The threat of new entrants is low due to their differentiation. They're not low cost, high components complicated, especially with patents. However, the threat of substitution may be high as we are approaching a potential recession. Construction may decrease. Risk diversifying their consumer base would be great. However, we do see, as I mentioned before, a potential for recession in the market, and then just knowledge, capability, or capacity. As we mentioned, their funding would be a great way for the actors to find additional funding for research and development as well as innovation. However, it would be best if they were able to partner with a European partner in the European Union or register with the however, there is a lot of technology over there that could be advantageous for the actors. With that being said, we'll move on to the I'll summarize with our analysis thus far, bringing all this pieces together. We're going to go into discussions on trade shows that we think would be advantageous for the actors to attend. This is also based on recommendations from the Department of Commerce. We have some locally and internationally that we can help you figure out what strategic partners will be there based on an analysis that we've compiled of potential partners, those companies that would plan to go or have similar supply agreements. We also want to consider markets in more temperate regions. Our initial conversations focused on those that are in cooler areas. However, with more extreme weather conditions becoming common, we think this might be a new niche market that we actually can serve before others enter that market. As we've seen recently, London, just 2 years ago, Texas experienced an extreme weather event that cost $1 that's becoming more and more common. There might be more and more common, more simple regions to increase their energy efficiency and develop more innovation and research and development around it. With that being said, I now will pass it over to Pedro. So in order to figure out which countries are from energy crisis, we responded to 3 parts. First, energy consumption. Second, energy spending. And third, the policy operation. I think have several trying so countries like Poland, Lithuania, and all the way to from Russia. So this is about the oil and next one. Yeah. So gas and countries like Netherlands. So this actually verified our assumptions about that in the long run, we're going to sustainable, and this very, when the topic of, energy is really hot right now, I think it's a good time for you to take advantage of it. That is also in the market, so that's why we also do short term, shows that, based on the countries that we just spoke about, these are our initial findings of definitely countries we want to research more to provide better analysis on social factors and either be advantageous or not advantageous to enter this market. This is by no means an exhaustive list. These were just the countries oil, imports and exports, energy consumption, friendly to green policy, and Green Deal. As well as what we felt we have in terms of treatments that are available and industry presence. For this list, refine it based on our findings. Okay, so here are the trade shows that we were able to find in the area. All of these shows related to the construction. One of these shows were like out. One is in place for remember it was a big building profession. So for businessmen, people who improve their profitability. Second show that I was actually like, I wanted to national show, design engineering. And like over 30,000 delegates. This conference takes place in about 30 countries. They take place in Southeast Asia, Middle East, Africa, Australia, Europe, UK, France, Germany, and other countries. So it's a very interesting conference. They're going to be developers, manufacturers, real estate engineers, architects, construction, network, new technology or explaining business. Next shows, they are smaller shows. They're mostly for homeowners who aren't fund cost effectively. Including specialists. It's going to be included like any Windows technologies that are going to be talked about during the show. And the last show is also a strategic show is the largest construction design show for New York tri-state area. Supported by the state of New York, and it covers construction opportunities in the tri-state area. It's constructed developers there and networking. New construction, working great for construction, and other topics. It's also the general shows that we're having. All other here by the next time. Here, everyone to do what's happening on. Also, we have the timeline of the trend. After we did all the side of the show, most of them have a very detailed activity, and there we can find it. After we decide, especially we can also
Before we start with the next step, that we're going to take, I just want to recap one so that you get a better idea as to where the resource is heading. So first, we EU energy consumption and dependency on Russia. So this is basically to ensure that you have a long-term expansion of this and partnerships. We decided with the help of the Department of Commerce, we also shortlisted a few trade shows, as you saw, so that Liatris gets an opportunity to network with potential customers and potential partnerships. So yeah, the next slide, yeah. So going forward, we'll be focusing on these 4 areas. First, we'll be looking at stores, competitors, and other companies and distributors that are there who are in the single family construction market. So that will be helpful because then we'll be cross-referencing and correlating those companies with the trade show list that we just showed you, so that you'll get an opportunity to talk to the people from those companies. Other than that, also based on the energy dependency data that we just went through, we'll be shortlisting a few countries, target countries, and then we'll be performing a gauge analysis on those countries so that we get you a refined list as to which countries can be targeted. So now that we have you up to speed, we're open to any questions that you would have for us.
It's a good start. So I've got a couple of, sort of talking and thinking points for the leading up to the final presentation, and then I'm sure we'll have a couple of questions, as well. So I think that in terms of the biggest value that this project can drive, relative to what the company is doing on its own, it's probably going to be sort of breaking down some of those international markets. Detail. And I think in particular, one of the advantages of like being on the student side is getting access to people you can interview and engage. And so I think, sort of taking that short list and then getting a potential roster of like sort of, hey, these are companies and people that we might want to talk to in the second half of this, and then working with the company to figure out whether there are mutual connections on LinkedIn or other past interactions. Like, I think that's going to be a really key aspect of like how we take this innovation and take it forward. And then like I think in the framework of like events and marketing and promotion, I look at it probably slightly differently than I would for a company that obviously has a product already. So like all those events that you listed for us are really useful, I think, from a market research standpoint. I think the reality is we have like a limited amount of time and money probably to spend at those types of activities, which is why we're doing something like this. So the two things I would look into are also ones around like installation, manufacturing, and sort of installation industry engagement, because not only are a lot of the manufacturing and technology potential partners going to be there, but then also some of those could be, if they're in the buildings market, like our relationship with Stowe, they could be like OEM or private label customers as well. So I know that I looked at the Global Installation Conference, which is in Portugal in November. So if there are like other conferences like that, those would be like the types of ones that we'd be keen to find out more about. And then with the Department of Commerce, it's been a while since I've dealt with them, so I'm curious what like the potential engagement mechanisms are. Because I remember they used to have some type of like export assistance programs, which we did in my last company. So for example, obviously if the travel portion of this is going to be part of Export MP, right, as is this project. And so the question then is, okay, does Department of Commerce have something that would supplement that, whether it's for Europe or even beyond Europe? So those would be like a couple of my key points of guidance. And then, so yeah, I think what we want to try to steer toward the final presentation is like some sort of refinement in terms of like criteria for rating and ranking those options, and then a list of like conversations, right? So there we talk to X number of people in these countries covering these types of companies. Like I think that's, if I had to think about for us what success looks like at the end, like that's that's where we should navigate the information we've gathered already. And then the question I would have before I let John and Riley dive in as well was like, I guess in the work that you did, what was sort of the biggest finding that was like surprising or unexpected relative to maybe some of the initial discussions we had on sort of the directions we're setting things? So like, what's been unexpected about what you've done so far, and how does that maybe help you think about how you might pivot slightly or change scope slightly?
Before we answer your question, do you mind if I ask you one in
Yeah.
response? So for the installation specific conferences, there was a lot of very specific installation type associations that held their own conferences, some being PIR, PUR, ETHIC. Like, I was a little bit curious, and these only came up in the last week, so I was hoping to ask you here. Are you looking more in installation in general? Like, would you want to reach out to those suppliers that specifically work with those organizations? Just being a little bit removed from the technology side, that was a question that I had.
I would assume that anything in the installation field is probably fair game.
Okay.
Actually, certainly an industry-wide conference versus product-specific one would be more interesting. But like I mean, so in terms of what we're developing, obviously we're trying to develop standalone products to sell to folks like Stowe. We do also have commercial partner discussions where people are interested in just taking our materials and blending it as part of the deposit. So there's a lot of different ways we can get to market. So I think almost any type of technology, installation technology is something we can partner with. I mean, certainly I think mineral wool and fiberglass are a little bit more different, and there are probably going to be fewer conferences for those as well, right? Because unlike the foam installation, like a basic rock wool, like a couple other companies, particularly in Europe. But yeah, I think in general, and anything installation industry, like the installation industry tends to be pretty hobby. So it's like, I think that like installation industry conferences are where we're going to get a lot of really good headway. We sort of have an idea going in, like what we're trying to do, and what we're trying to engage those.
Thank you. That's great feedback. We weren't sure if we should keep it more broad, but that more specific will be
Yeah,
great for us to address.
Like, yeah, I think maybe didn't clarify, some of the technical elements and how we can partner. So yeah, so that's pretty open.
That's great to know. I appreciate that. And then to your question, I don't want to speak for the group in terms of what we found surprising. Figuring out the regulations specifically for each country was something I didn't anticipate having to look into, but now that we are looking into it, I thought it was very interesting. And I remember you made the point of we didn't want to exclude necessarily countries based on that. But I think we hope that providing you that information will be helpful for you to also navigate which countries, maybe you'd want to tackle first, or any, future innovations that might be responsive to those European, differences in construction. Again, being very removed from that, it was a new language I had to learn. Not sure if anyone else had any other thoughts, especially like the country analysis or anything like that.
It's also very surprising for me. The R&U values very different among the different countries. Does anyone else have anything?
The one other thing I'll mention, I suppose, is just different countries' attitudes towards both the Green New Deal, greening the environment, or greening their policies, and their changes that they've had to make in response to the Russian-Ukrainian war. In my mind, prior to this investigation, I thought they were all pretty on the same page in terms of investment into green infrastructure. So that's something I know I'm considering a little bit more as we dive into these countries, what we don't want to announce, want to analyze. I think that's definitely created some more parameters that we want to include in our research to you, especially in terms of what will have more advantageous regulations for them, what will have potential funding opportunities. That was a bit insightful for me.
I think even all the countries, so all of them have any kinds of government programs and policies that they are particularly for cleaner energy. So they say that there's tax reduction if you install greener energy or things like that. So there's so many for different countries, and it's very interesting to see how these construction companies can actually use them and just grow in terms of getting cleaner energy and things like that. And there are also a lot of loan policies that they're giving out just like that. And so because of that, there's a lot of construction that's going on, even for commercial and also residential. So that's very interesting.
That would be programs. I know there's a Verizon program, which is a big one for R&D funding. Finding
Yes.
out what the eligibility requirements are, these tools that may drive how we approach shape, even get a strategic partner to set up like the life sciences. And also looking at sort of country specific, R&D or other sort of location-based incentives, like that would be. But obviously, you start with the EU, right? There's a lot of EU stuff that applies to 28 countries or whatever. There are going to be some country-specific ones as well. But I think that would be valuable. I think we all pretty closely what's going on in the US, but like not as much so what's in Europe. But we're starting to get to the stage where we probably have enough that could be something that could help, sort of drive a partnership.
And the Horizon one, that one would be one you have to register in a member country. Another part of our research was there's a cohesion fund. If you were to register in a member nation that had 90% or less of the EU's, I believe it was GDP, I can't remember the measurement. They have a fund that typically will match the Horizon fund and several other projects. So when you're thinking about different countries to enter, that might be another consideration. The EU also puts out a really great, it's very long, but it has hyperlinks that you can click through it of funding opportunities that are related to environmental Green New Deal programs, where we were able to find some information, and they break it down really great that it's, research and development funding versus, job opportunities funding, as well as by what state of the development you're at, whether it's the construction industry or health sciences. So we intend to deliver you that as well, which hopefully will help with your research, but we can definitely include analysis on some of those programs.
Yes, I'd assume anything is fair game. I think one of the things you're probably trying to still is going through like a transition. So basically the owners are still, he's going to be phasing out, his daughter's going to be taking over sort of their family office. And sort of, I think there's going to be some avenues for us, like more strategically with them, because they've already expressed interest in the manufacturing partnership, but we've actually sort of been trying to get other companies interested first, so we're not like too high with one particular partner. So like they're in every country, like 68 countries globally. So anything that requires EU registration, we're probably do with them. I think one of the key questions is going to be like risk versus return. So like do any of these programs publish like application statistics? Like I don't know. So for example, US and DOE grants, they don't publish them, but like then you talk to people, we have a pretty good sense of like, hey, if I submit a concept paper, I've got like, and it gets accepted, I've got to like take a shot at getting a proposal, and those types of things. So like I think trying to get a little bit more flavor from some of those programs would be useful. And I'm pretty sure once you get the list of programs sorted out, I know like a couple of consultants that are like always trying to pitch us to sell grant work that would like really probably have conversations that are specialized in Europe. So like that would be a fruitful route, I think, to work on.
No, that's great to know.
Yes, thank you.
I had a, not necessarily a question, but kind of like, are you guys looking at like also incentives and retrofit activities in the EU, basically to like look at like where, because that's something that John and I have been focusing on is here in the United States, what incentives or what tax credits and things like that can be returned for building or commercial installation, essentially from the government for residential uses. And so I was wondering if you guys had looked into that on the EU scale. We did a little bit of like an overview for the EU, but we didn't do a deep dive. I know you guys have those countries that you were looking at specifically. And additionally, I also was wondering if you guys were looking into like fire regulations. We were looking into the Grenfell Tower fire, which was driving insulation changes in the UK. So I was wondering like what you guys were looking at there.
Yeah, so we were definitely looking at the government regulations and incentives that are available in the EU. And we will be presenting like a more detailed analysis of that during our final presentation. In terms of the second part.
Yeah, I can speak to that briefly. So from our research so far at the EU level, there are standards that a company or a product would have to meet certain regulations such as non-combustible. I think it might be similar to the English or the US ratings of A1, A2. From our research so far, I think that would be more of a country analysis of what those regulations are. So far as I could see, there was no, at least for the non-combustible part, there was no mandate from European wide. And I think it's something that we definitely want to keep an eye on as the energy crisis goes on. They've already made changes in their Green New Deal policies in terms of allowing gas to be considered. I think it's no longer a fossil fuel. So I think we want to keep an eye on what those regulations are and what they might change to as the energy crisis becomes more extreme. Make sure that we're not hinging everything on non-combustible being our go-getter, and then that maybe would be retracted back as policies are changing. So I think it's definitely something we want to keep an eye on. At this point, I haven't seen specific regulation EU-wide, but I think that's something we'll get a little bit more into on our country-by-country analysis.
Sort of follow for your country by country analysis. I was curious if you guys are ranking the countries, like what has like greatest weight at it? Is it the Russian oil dependence or is it something else?
For the countries we selected or the country? So when we were considering these countries, it was a mixture of factors based on, again, the oil consumption, favorability to EU Green New Deal policies, innovation adoption by those governments, size of the market, need for energy efficiency measures and energy efficiency policies within that government. So definitely that's not an exhaustive list yet. We just wanted to give a taste of what we found so far, like the ones that we think are the most promising, and we do anticipate to add potentially a few more to that list.
I had a question, and I don't know if you guys have really done this side of the research. Riley asked a lot of questions about the incentives and stuff, but another aspect that I was looking at was whether the supply is keeping up with all these incentives and everything. And so I was wondering either A, if you found anything about these countries and whether the supply and the installation, the following with these policies, there's a lot of catch up in terms of the demand, or if this was like something that could be an extension for the final presentation.
I'm thinking that will be part of our final presentation. We haven't gone too in depth in our analysis in that part yet, but we definitely intend to do that. Any other questions, you guys, that we can help you with or answer today?
Or any additional feedback?
Feedback, yeah.
I enjoyed the presentation.
Oh, thank you.
Out of the project, like some of the aspects of and sort of apply that practically after school. You're all MBAs or some of your other programs?
No, Aaron and I are MBA students. These are our graduate students here. We can
From specialty masters.
Yeah, so since we have a little bit of time, why don't we just go down and I'd love you guys to share more about what you're doing. And then I'll let my interns do the same.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, I could start.
Yeah.
So I'm studying quantitative finance. I have experience in research and I like research in general. Like the funnest part for me about this research is researching energy market in Europe and like who is more dependent, what are really the relationship among that, how it's changing, how EU policies are changing. So for me is more so, I just really like research. For the future, I want to work as a research more so in the finance industries, not a consulting industries, but this is pretty interesting for me. So that's why I'm looking to get out of this.
Yeah, so I'm doing my master's in business analytics. So I've worked for consulting firms like Deloitte before. So I really wanted to learn more. So I joined this. So right now I'm working for a firm called Gensler, who is into architecture. I'm not sure if you've heard of it. It's a global firm. So I'm doing a lot of research over there about ESG and sustainability and things like that. So this is really working out for me because every day at the end of the day, I research for this and I see so much, everything that I'm learning in the day, I'm using it over here. So it's really good for me. And I think whatever I research over here, I tell them that, Europe is a great market. I actually went and told them that and they agreed and they got a meeting for an ESG project in London. So that's a really good thing that I got out of this. And I think there's a lot more that I'm going to learn and work in both.
Hi, so I'm from information system master degree in UMD right now. So in this program, I mostly focus on what kind of data we could find to support our decision and analytics. Here, the most data we can find is in the part of energy consumption and dependency part. But what I really want to quantify, but it's hard to quantify, but from my mindset, I would just really go through that way of, okay, how we can quantify a green level, but that would be really hard. And also, what other dimensions we need to consider when we want to choose a specific company to research on. So we have many dimensions already set. Some of them are good to be, analyzed by data. Some of them just really hard. First, you don't have a collection of data. Second, it may be really hard to process and build a model with it. So that's the part I'm just kind of, I really want to think about, but I did it hard by right now, the situation, the data I can get right now. So I'm really happy that I got a chance to dive into a really business part right now. So, because I am more a tech part right now, so I'm working as a kind of like developer in another company right now. So the business part is, I'm not a little weak about this. So I feel like in this project can learn many like mindset from all these colleagues and also a professor. So yeah, I'll just try to devote more in the rest of the project. Yeah.
I'm Stephanie. I'm an MBA student and I'm specializing in international business. And I'm fascinated by international business. I love everything about it. And for this project specifically, I love leadership and I love leading the team. And I like helping them and they're definitely helping me. So that is what I'm getting out of this.
I'm Jagruti. I'm pursuing masters in marketing analytics over here. And the thing that interested me the most in this project was the qualitative analysis. Like we're coming up with dimensions to, analyze which countries to select and all that. So that's very fascinating to me and I'm really looking forward to it.
I'm Eric Fitzpatrick. I'm the other MBA student. In my day job, I'm an accountant, so I do not get to think strategically. There's lots of rules there. So I really like the ability to think that way. I also do not work with international that often. So this project and another one that Stephanie and I have worked on together has allowed me to think a little bit more internationally about how to strategize. It's a constantly changing environment. It's not one that you have a good grasp on and then things change very quickly. So you have to keep up with the information. So I found it really interesting and a really great way to apply some of the strategic thinking that we've been taught in our MBA program to changing environments, to more than a static document from Harvard Business Review. So putting a little practice into it, which has been really great. So, and hoping to get out of it just, more experience and understanding how to apply those frameworks and see them in a real life example.
My name is John. I go to Amherst College in Massachusetts. I'm a statistics major on the pre-med track. And yes, I really enjoy Liatris because it's a very, let's say, business aspect that I'm working on, but at the same time, we work right next to our lab. We have a lab experience, and I think science is more my passion. So I really enjoy having that background.
My name is Riley. I go to George Washington University, so not too far away. I'm studying business with a concentration in international business as well as innovation and entrepreneurship. Thing about Liatris is I grew up, both my parents are entrepreneurs, so I have the startup realm. And I minored in sustainability. I always knew I wanted to do something with sustainability. So Liatris is really like a winning combo. So yeah, that's why.
Great.
Okay, so looks like a couple of my just general thoughts on these consulting projects. Like, so I've done probably over the last 15 years, like done these with sort of like almost 10 different business schools. And so they take all forms, right? So I think the one you guys are doing is a little bit unique because it's actually a paid scope rather than for accredited as part of this export MD thing. But a lot of them are the same, right? So like I said, in the beginning, we did one with Tuck, that my prior company was also centered around sort of international partnering, done like the MIT lab, which is like very cross-functional features. That one is, as John said, like it's plugging into scientists. And so I think these are really useful because, like I said, one thing I found is like when you're a student, like everybody will talk to you, and then like once you get out of school, it's like the further you sort of go in your career, like the harder it is to have these sort of informal conversations. And like definitely from a consulting standpoint, a couple things that I would sort of share are, so in addition to Liatris, I'm also partnered with ADL Ventures, which is a clean tech venture consulting firm. And large utilities, players in the different areas of impact, like gas buildings, being one transportation. Like, I think really the key to success in a lot of these, sort of go forward, if this is something you want to take up in your career, it's like under sort of getting to know an industry and a sector and sort of an area of products well enough where you can like then deliver and package those insights to a client. But I also think like a lot of it really is not rocket science. Like a lot of it is really like the detail and presentation, like being responsive, really just working with the client to understand what they need. Because like I think consulting, just like any type of business, product business where you're selling something, and probably even more so with product business, it's a client service business, right? And like your margin is like your billable rates, and then if you're doing milestone-based projects instead of hourly, and then it's how much you can charge on a milestone basis. So I think sort of building those insights and like trying to figure out what general area you want to specialize in is really important. Like even if you went to a really big place like the Deloitte or like the McKinsey or something like that, you eventually usually end up in some type of industry vertical, and like the further up you go, the more specialized you become. So this is a great opportunity. As I tell interns as well, is like use this as an opportunity to think of Liatris and then sort of the clean energy space more broadly is something you want to get into, for instance. Then I think once you decide that, it's like we always talk in business school about sort of the three aspects of like industry, job function, and location. It's like usually in any particular job, you're not going to get all three of those perfect, but like you have to be shooting for at least two of those to be sort of properly addressed in an opportunity. And like I think at the stage coming out of school, it's also hard to just say I'm going to bet it all in one industry. Like unless it's something like EVs, it's like it's so big that there's like ample opportunity. Usually you should be looking at two or three different industries, probably a couple different job functions, locations as well. So yeah, those would be a couple of my thoughts. But I've been definitely pleased with the work. Definitely in between now and sort of the closing, because there's like additional, whether it's like email feedback or review of documents or things like that, don't hesitate to ping us. And like this is a great part of like a much bigger puzzle that we're putting together as a company. So like I said, we're ultimately looking to use this capital efficient model as a way to find a manufacturing partner and scale up in the US, which is something that we're working a lot on our own, finding more in Europe, ultimately to apply these similar projects like this in Asia. And a lot of it is at this stage is about planting seeds, because like, you don't really know, like I said, where success is going to come from, but like you want to put yourself in a position to get lucky and really sort of drive that commercial viability piece that I was talking about. So like those would be some of my key observations. Do you guys have any questions for me or for us about whether it's the company, like my background, any other feedback you'd like to get before the final meeting? And again, we're really looking forward to hosting you guys at the final meeting, because like John said, I think that'll help make it feel a little bit more real as well for you.
I do have a question. How did you get involved in ESG like that? You know, between the venture capital firm and, you know, Liatris, it seems like a niche you found.
Yes, actually, the CTO of Liatris is my father. He's also an adjunct here at University of Maryland College Park. So he's been working in the insulation area for 30+ years. And so even growing up, like occasionally I would help him with like grant proposals. I heard a lot about energy and also about, you know, I think the concept of like, you know, climate, energy efficiency. So all these things were pretty pertinent for me at an early age. Like coming out of college, I did investment banking for 2 years, which I think like going into these professional services field was like really good training for anybody right out of college. But then I quickly decided, you know, through business school that like, hey, I want to go, you know, into a startup. This was like an area that I'm keen on going into. And I specifically started out in solar, just because that's where there was a lot of funding opportunity at that time. I think the solar industry is great because like I think when you're doing power generation and you're like adding stuff to the grid, that's like it's probably more high profile than energy efficiency. And solar is definitely like an industry that gets a lot of good PR, a lot of buzz, a lot of like celebrities, you know, putting solar on their houses now. It's like it's become a little bit more mainstream. I would say energy efficiency is used maybe as like lower hanging fruit, and also being like for some people a little bit less exciting. But it's really one of the fastest and most important means we have to like, you know, reduce our energy consumption and reduce our reliance on, you know, whether it's imports or more expensive or more environmentally friendly sources of energy. So like that's I think part of what motivates me. I do think there's also in any of these like the fundamental economic opportunity in the product market that has to be there. And insulation is an area where there hasn't been a lot of technical innovation for a while. So that part of it makes it challenging, but then also, hey, if you can just get your company off the ground, there's not actually a lot of people that are doing this. Whereas if you start a mobile app, you know, there's probably 100 different programmers in their garage all trying to do the same thing as you. So yeah, no, so it's definitely for those of you that are more longer, taking sort of the longer term and then sort of maybe more impact on things. This is like a great, you know, field to go into. It's not now gotten to the point where there's enough funding to go in where like, hey, you don't have to go to a nonprofit or take some unpaid fellowship or something to get into it. There's a lot of companies that are doing great things. I think for you, I mean, my work has been more focused on the key part of the ESG. And like there's a lot of activity there, but I think more broadly across the impact spectrum, you know, now it's definitely a great time to get in.
Absolutely. And to your point, like I think at least in my research so far, like the energy efficiency aspect, at least by the European government, is being somewhat realized that it's you know, most cost effective, the quickest way we can kind of get to a more economically friendly place, a net zero place, help them meet their targets. So it definitely seems like that, right?
Professor Crocker, did you have any points you wanted to add or anything?
I'm just happy to be here.
Great. And was there anything from Lynn? I know we have trouble hearing her. If you want to click out just to see if she messaged. Marina, anything from you?
Marina, are there any closing thoughts?
Here, she just messaged us.
Nope, no closing thoughts.
Okay, well then that's great. Well, thank you guys for traveling out here. Hopefully,
Thank you very much.
495 is easy on the way back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Looking forward to it.
absolutely. Yeah, this is my first in-person presentation in 2+ years. I'm like, oh, I don't have my notes in front of me. I'm like, I gotta like old-fashioned paper it.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for being out here.
Like this is my phone.
Nice meeting both of you. And I see you.